Well, good morning. Happy Tuesday morning to you, everyone. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and we are currently coming down toward the close of our examination of the 23 affirmative arguments that Dr. David Hester offered in my formal public debate with him July 14th and 15th, 2016 in Ardmore, Oklahoma. Dr. David Hester got up and in extremely rapid-fire fashion rattled off 23 affirmative arguments saying Preston cannot answer these. And of course, that's an old debater's trick. You present so much material that your opponent simply cannot address all of the material, so that when he does not answer the material, you get up and you boast and you brag, oh, look, he didn't answer my arguments because he can't answer all of my arguments. Well, I want to suggest to you, ladies and gentlemen, that you make sure that you watch that debate and you take careful note that Dr. David Hester, in his argumentation, argued strictly, solely, and exclusively from presupposition. He did not prove his basic premises. He took for granted that they were true and argued from that presupposition to his conclusion. Now look, I love syllogistic argumentation, but if your major premise is wrong, if your minor premise is wrong, guess what? Your conclusion is wrong. So Dr. David Hester, in his argument number 18, said there was no spiritual resurrection in AD 70. Now, I want to make two very, very quick points. I had asked Dr. David Hester if Daniel chapter 12 was the same resurrection, of John 5, 28 and 29, which, by the way, he takes his final resurrection. If it was the same resurrection of Acts 24, 14 and 15, which he takes his final resurrection. And he said, yes. Well, when I got up and then demonstrated that Daniel chapter 12, verse 2 would be fulfilled, quote, when the power of the holy people has been completely shattered, unquote, Daniel chapter 12, verse 7, right there in front of the audience and in front of God and the world, Dr. David Hester completely changed his position. And he said that Daniel chapter 12, verse 2 wasn't necessarily the final resurrection. Now, folks, this is stunning. It's fascinating and revealing that in careful, thoughtful response to my written questions, he said it's the final resurrection, when he was absolutely, totally entrapped by the text of Daniel chapter 12. He said, well, it's probably not the final resurrection after all. Well, what then would it be? What kind of resurrection would it be? It would be a spiritual resurrection. When then did it occur? It occurred when the power of the holy people was completely shattered. Oh, and by the way, if you were there or if you've watched the video of the debate, I'm not sure if you caught it or not. Dr. David Hester, being completely and totally and fatally entrapped by his claim or by his admission that Daniel chapter 12 was not the final resurrection, being entrapped by that, he then responded that, well, even if Daniel 12, verse 2, did apply to AD 70, that does not mean that it's restricted to that. Well, if it applied to AD 70, what was it? It was a spiritual resurrection, thus completely, totally negating his own claim that there was no spiritual resurrection in AD 70. Unless, of course, pardon me, Dr. David Hester would want to argue that there was a physical resurrection in AD 70, and I can assure you he does not. So, Dr. David Hester, therefore, was forced to argue there was a resurrection in AD 70. Well, what was resurrected? Was it strictly individuals? Or did those individuals comprise a corporate body? And if it was the corporate body of those individuals raised to eternal life, as Daniel chapter 12 verse 2 said would happen, then guess what? It was the corporate body, i.e. the church, that was resurrected. Thus, once again, completely, totally, and fatally nullifying and falsifying Dr. David Hester's claim, number one, that there was no resurrection in AD 70, and number two, that the church was not resurrected in AD 70. His own comments demand there was a resurrection of the church in AD 70. Falsifying his own position. Look, folks, once again, please get yourself a copy of my book, The Resurrection of Daniel, chapter 12, verse 2, Fulfilled or Future. There's not another book like this anywhere. If you want to see how devastating Daniel chapter 12 is to the postmillennial view, to the amillennial view, to the dispensational view, get a copy of this book. Go to my website, eschatology.org or BibleProphecy.com, order the book, send me a note, pardon me, informing me that you saw the offer on YouTube or Facebook, and I'll refund your shipping. Well, we got a whole lot more in response to David Hester's 23 arguments. We'll be looking at argument number 19 in our next installment. See you on the flip side.